Welcome. In this video, I will address ethical writing. Some people might say that writing ethically is simply not plagiarizing, but it's actually a bit more than that. And ethical writing is a responsibility of all academics. It's also a responsibility of all business people. In fact, it's everyone's responsibility, because even in our personal writing, we must be ethical. Let's get started. I'm going to use a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation to help me keep on track. I've given the subtitle of this presentation, Acknowledging Sources and Avoiding Biased Argumentation. It sounds kind of highfalutin, but it's actually a bit easier once we get into the details. When we write, we create a contract with the reader. This implicit contract is particularly noticeable in academic writing, where specific writing styles such as APA, citations, and references helps to identify the source of our data. But this contract also exists in business writing and personal writing, right down to the text messages that we send. The first element of ethical writing and the contract that the writer forms with the reader is that the reader will assume that the content that's been written is of that author's original composition, that it's not simply been copied from another source and then presented as if the author had originally composed the words. Because readers will assume that the content in our written work is of our own construction, we have to be really careful when integrating someone else's ideas or words into our statements. And we have to identify the source of that data that we're including. Because duplication of someone else's words or even their ideas is generally considered plagiarism within most U.S. universities and colleges. The reader, as part of this implicit contract, will also assume that the data presented are accurate, that they reflect the best known facts, or I should say, they reflect the facts as they are best known to the author of the work. Now, this doesn't mean authors make mistakes. Students make mistakes in the representation of facts in their papers. Professional scholars also make mistakes. But when those mistakes are made, they should be admitted, owned, and some type of repair given. So within this contract, we want the reader to assume that the information that we present is accurate to the best of our ability. In being fair in the argumentation, it's important to recognize that data that contradicts the proposition likely exists. A proposition, a claim, is a debatable statement. It's the statement that, in formal argumentation, we wish the reader to accept. But to be fair in the argumentation, we must acknowledge the existence of contradictory data when the contradictory data exists. So usually we form our claims based on the best available data, and we show that these data have come from expert sources. The contradictory data may come from sources that are not as expert as the sources that we choose to accept. But it's still important that the contradictory data be acknowledged in the course of argumentation so that the reader doesn't assume that we are cherry-picking data that just supports a bias that we have, and that our proposition is not grounded in a bias, but reflects the best available expert information. And during the course of the argumentation, ethical writing requires that the data that we select to defend our propositions reflects the principal intention of the sourced expert. Now, experts sometimes, everyone, makes asides, mentions additional information, but that information that's just simply mentioned in an aside is not the principal argument that that source was making. So don't use that mentioned data in the defense of a claim that you wish to make. Writing ethically requires looking at the corpus of the evidence that supports the argument and not relying on just simple additional details that were presented. And be aware, when citing a source that was an oral comment, such as a video presentation or a recorded interview or a podcast, be aware that it's more likely that one will make misstatements in oral comments because they're made in the moment, and it's sometimes more difficult to correct statements, and they might not even be recognized by the speaker, whereas written work can be edited, proofread, and carefully wordsmithed to accurately reflect the intention of the author. These are the references from the sources that I cited within my presentation, and I recommend each of these to you, and you might find them helpful as you're seeking to better understand what is and how to apply ethical writing standards. Now, I'll make a request of you. Please leave your comments below this video. Tell other students what changes have you made to your draft works so that you are more ethical in the presentation of your arguments. What examples of unethical writing have you observed? The comments that you leave will help other students be more ethical in their writing, and you can come back in the future and review the comments that they've made, which might give you ideas for how you can be more ethical in your writing. I hope these comments are of interest to you. Ethical writing is an important part of your academic development, and it's vital that you are ethical in each of your written documents, whether they're academic papers, business letters, business email messages, or even text messages with your family and friends. Until we meet again in a future video, I wish you the absolute best in all of your academic work, particularly in your application of ethical writing principles. Bye for now. Mika, you're a good walking dog. Yes, you are. Yes, you stay on the sidewalk. You look at the squirrels, but you don't chase them. Ugh, you're such a pleasure to walk with. What a nice dog you are. And how about all those deer that we saw this morning? That was something, wasn't it? Yeah, I love you very much.